Hi, I'm Bonnie McGregor. I'm a clinical psychologist and a behavioral scientist here at the Hutch. So that means that I study how what happens in our minds can influence what happens in our bodies and our health, especially as it relates to cancer survivorship. So for example, I work with women like Mary. Mary's a 56-year-old married mother of 2 grown children. Last summer, Mary was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. As you can imagine, Mary was devastated by this diagnosis, and so were her family and friends. Mary had major surgery, she had chemotherapy, and she is now cancer-free, or no evidence of disease. So obviously her friends and family are pretty pleased about this, but Mary's afraid the cancer is going to come back. As you know, ovarian cancer is pretty aggressive. She also feels kind of depressed and tired, and she's feeling pretty isolated right now. She can't talk to her husband about her fears that the cancer will come back because he's afraid too. He really likes to hear when she's doing well. She can't talk to her kids because she's their mom, right? It's her job to take care of them. It's not their job to take care of her and her concerns. She can't really talk to her friends. Her friends have kind of surprised her. When she first had her surgery, they brought over food for her and her husband afterwards, but they've been out of touch lately. And she's worried that they're distancing themselves because they're afraid she might die. What Mary doesn't know is that these symptoms are really common for cancer survivors in general and ovarian cancer survivors in particular. What she also doesn't know is that stress, social isolation, and depression have been linked with worse outcomes in ovarian cancer. So how might this happen? You guys have heard a lot of biology, so I feel like what I do has biology also. Chronic stress has been shown to suppress immune cell function in my lab and others in ovarian cancer patients and other cancer survivors. We also know that this chronic suppression of the immune cells happens in the peripheral blood, it happens in the fluid around the tumor, and most potently, most powerfully, chronic stress suppresses the immune cells that are actually in trying to fight the tumor. We also have taken ovarian cancer cells and put them in a petri dish and added the stress hormone norepinephrine to that dish. And it turns out that ovarian cancer cells have receptors for those stress hormones. And when you add stress hormones to the culture dish, those tumor cells secrete very high levels of VEGF. VEGF is something that our bodies use to create new blood vessels. Tumor cells use VEGF to create new blood vessels, to feed the tumor as it's getting bigger and bigger. Our colleague Anil Sood has taken this work one step further and shown in mice that chronic stress is associated with increased levels of VEGF, increased blood vessel formation around the tumor, and bigger tumors. And he's also shown that you can block all of this by blocking that stress hormone receptor, thus proving conclusively that it's the chronic stress that's driving these changes. So this is all great. It's really cool to understand these mechanisms. It actually takes your breath away to see these findings presented at meetings. But we need to do better than this. We need to help women like Mary. We need to reverse stress and depression and isolation in ovarian cancer survivors like Mary. So how might we go about doing this? Well, I've developed stress and coping workshops for breast cancer survivors. And I and others have shown that these workshops can reduce stress and depression and isolation in breast cancer survivors. I've also shown in my lab that these workshops can improve immune function in breast cancer survivors. And our colleague, Barbara Anderson, has shown that these workshops can also increase survival in stage 1 to 3 breast cancer survivors. So this is great. It's very exciting. These data are wonderful. But we really need to expand these workshops. No one has studied how these workshops can help ovarian cancer survivors until now. My colleague Susan Lickendorf and I have taken the very best from the breast cancer workshops. We've added mindfulness practices and techniques to create what we think is a very powerful series of workshops for ovarian cancer survivors. Furthermore, we've developed a web platform so that we can deliver these workshops to the women right in their own homes on a tablet or a desktop computer. We just literally 3 weeks ago finished the very first beta testing of these workshops, trying out the new platform and the improved workshop. And we did this with 5 ovarian cancer survivors, mostly in Iowa. And we're really excited about what we heard from these women. One woman said, it's so great to talk to other ovarian cancer survivors. You guys really understand what it's like. My friends and family just don't get it the way that you do. Another survivor named Sue, who lives in rural Iowa, said, I'd never met an ovarian cancer survivor before. I don't feel so alone anymore. And Sue actually went from the first group, it looked like she was still in bed with her tablet, participating in the group, until the very, 3 weeks before the last group, she was actually working again, volunteering, cooking at a community center, and she was so happy. It was just amazing to see the transformation in Sue. But one of the best comment came from Mary herself, who said, you know what? I didn't really think I needed these workshops. I just signed up for them because I wanted to help your science. As women we're so good at wanting to help others, right? But she said, I really learned a lot. I did need these workshops. I feel like I can talk to my friends and my family now. I feel like I have hope. It's really encouraging to hear these women's reports from the workshops, but we need to do so much more. We can't even analyze the data yet. We need to do a large randomized controlled trial of these workshops. And in order to we need to do the trial so that we can prove that these workshops can reduce stress and depression and isolation among ovarian cancer survivors. We also need to show that these workshops can improve immune function and other biological outcomes. And finally, we'd really love to show that these workshops can help ovarian cancer survivors live longer. The beauty of these workshops is that we can deliver this what we think is state-of-the-science care to ovarian cancer survivors all over the country, right here from our offices at Fred Hutch. But in order to do that, we need your help. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here, and thank you for listening.